Hi, my name is Andre Barker. I am an artist from Detroit, Michigan, and I'm also a professor at Wayne State University. I went to Wayne State University for my bachelor's and graduated summa cum laude, and then went to Columbia College Chicago for my master's and graduated 2024. So I started painting, God, a long time ago. I went to a high school for art, but I didn't really care for art when I was in high school, even though it was an art high school. And I didn't really become interested in it until I went to Wayne State for my bachelor's degree in fine arts. And it wasn't until I went to the DIA, there was an exhibit about Star Wars at the DIA. And I walked around and I saw all of these beautiful paintings, and none of them had people that looked like me. And that sort of inspired me to really get into art and try to have more Black representation in those spaces. And of course, at that time, I was drawing and didn't really start painting until I was in grad school, which was a whole ordeal. But um, yeah, going through that and then seeing all that work and then going to grad school and having different experiences outside of Detroit really pushed my art practice and made me realize what I could do with fine art. So when I went to Columbia College Chicago for my MFA, I moved into a neighborhood that was quote unquote safe, but found out safe just meant mostly white. And at the time, I'm not sure if it changed, but I was the only Black person in like my building. And that sort of um, was like a culture shock to me. And then going to Columbia and being the only Black person in the cohort for about a semester changed my perspective on art and sort of pushed me to want to try new things within my practice and different motifs and symbolisms within my work. During the first solo show, Glimpse of Us, I really just had a bunch of work from my thesis exhibition for my MFA. And during that show, I just had like all the work trying out new things because at the time, I've only been painting for about a year and a half, probably 2 years, and really trying to understand my practice and my style of painting. So it was felt like everything but the kitchen sink at that time, trying new ideas, new concepts, different motifs and symbolisms, which one of them ended up being the plastic bag over the head of one of the paintings. And from like, not only the reception of people asking about like, what does this bag mean? Um, it also made me, want to pursue that motif and figure out how can I like concretely make like a series based off of the plastic bag. And that's when I started thinking about my experience in Chicago, and all of my different influences from loving video games, loving anime and manga, cartoons, movies, and looking at what other artists are doing, like Titus Kaphar, Mario Moore, Rashawn Rucker, Kehinde Wiley, all of the contemporary artists I really look up to, and looking in the past at what John Singer Sargent did, David, Caravaggio, Artemisia Gentileschi, and look at that as well as all of my influences, like personal influences, like I said, with video games and all of that combined to me figuring out, okay, so this is what the bag means. The bag is all about disposability and discomfort in a white space, which is what I experienced in Chicago. And looking at what the other artists are doing and what I would like to see in museums and galleries and try to make art that really speaks to me as an artist. And that's when I landed on, okay, have the cross-hatching background from my love of drawing in the past, since I started off drawing, and using my work showing characters, because like I said, I love video games, love comic books, using like have characters in the work. My work is about sharing the Black experience through the lens of Afro-Surrealism to show the poetic weirdness of our experience and how uncanny it can be. Afro-Surrealism is a nuanced way to show the Black experience, mainly shown in work like Atlanta and Jordan Peele's work like Get Out. And for the first show, Glimpse of Us, it was inside of like people just observing Black people in their space. That's why the backgrounds were blank. That's why I really pushed into this chiaroscuro technique, like a spotlight was on Black and brown people. But now with this work and showing Black people at rest, after doing all the work for the plastic bags and reflecting on my own experience going to Chicago again for a residency called Ragdale, and being like this environment that felt like Get Out, but still I was comfortable. I was owned my Blackness. I didn't felt hindered being Black in that environment. I felt free. And I don't know if it's a level of confidence that I gained over the months of being back in Detroit. I'm not sure what it is, but from that experience, it made me come back to Detroit and start a whole new body of work. And one of the first pieces I made was New Negro in Oz, which it was directly inspired by my time at Ragdale and back in Chicago with a woman stepping on the bag and reclaiming their blackness and saying, okay, I'm not feeling uncomfortable anymore. Now that the bag is off my head, this is who I am and I'm proud. And then making more pieces of them pulling out the bag and totally ripping the bag. And from that, I wanted to show Black people at rest. Of course, the bag is a wonderful motif and it's something everyone can relate to. But with this new series, I wanted to show rest, not rest as in they're sleeping or they're, relaxing, but rest of Black people just existing in this environment, living in their own bubble, still separate with the alienation, with the cross-hatching background and them being rendered separately from that, but still thriving and being successful and having their own lives, talking to people, rather and having different emotions, whether it's irritation, whether it's happiness, whether it's contemplation, but just existing. And I think that's important. I think that's what we need right now, and I think that's what my art needed. Going to museums, whether it's in Detroit or in Chicago, I've always looked at artwork and I see all these different other cities and environments. I'm seeing Chicago sometimes, I'm seeing LA, I'm seeing New York, but I never really see Detroit. And that inspired me for my own work to have Detroit as a backdrop. So no matter where my work is, whether it's in private collections, public collections, or museums or whatnot, Detroit is there so people can see Detroit and a light that I haven't really seen in those spaces. I want them to see Detroit in a positive light to show that it can be a backdrop for anyone, that anyone can be in Detroit, and that it can be seen as a part of fine art as New York or LA. Pretty much for all of the backdrops of the stuff that's behind the characters or the people in my work really just comes from me going throughout the city, whether it's outside Buddy's Pizza downtown, going up Woodward to H&M, just taking random pictures of Detroit that really spoke to me at the time, and try to pair those backdrops with certain models that I feel like they would work good in.